Welcome to the Crossroadz, the show where we dive into the stories of unique and accomplished individuals so that you can unlock your best life. Ryan, thank you for taking the time to, out of your busy day,
Yeah.
to be in this Crossroadz space. Yeah, the very first online edition of the Crossroadz COVID-19 edition.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to have you on this podcast for a very long time, actually. I don't know if you remember. I'm sure you do.
Oh
But
yeah,
the
from Red
first
Bull,
time,
yeah.
yes, the first time we got to talk was at Red Bull BC1 LA Cypher. You were one of the invites, and Nico actually suggested that you would be a really good person to interview. And I had no idea what I was about to experience. I was like, yeah, cool. So you were very willing to, even though you were already getting followed by a bunch of LA Times reporters, I think, right?
Man,
I didn't know
that
that.
was a
I didn't know
lot.
that. So I appreciate you again for taking the time out of that. And I do want to ask you about that more later. But when I
Yeah,
sat you
sure.
down for that 3 minute, 5 minute interview,
Hmm.
you blew my mind. And I don't want to keep what's it called, rowing, like putting you on a pedestal. I don't want to do that. But to be completely honest, you are very much a pleasure to talk to. So I'm excited to have you here today.
Much
Yeah.
appreciated.
Yes. And so, I guess I want to start from the beginning, just because for those of you not listening, and I will summarize ahead of time, but Ryan is a P-boy, but he also is a man of many trades. And before you started to where the point you are now on the Elusives and being a director for caffeine, technical director, is that correct? Or is that,
Technical
yes, technical
director.
director. That's right. Okay.
Technical is a very big difference.
Yeah. Okay,
Very
we'll,
big.
we'll get more into that as well because I'm curious.
Yeah, yeah.
But for those of you who don't know, even for me, Elusive fits the name very well for Ryan because at a surface level and at a conversational level, I get to see this man killing on the dance floor, destroying international b-boys,
Oh,
1v1s.
destroying is
And
a very strong word.
and yeah, today's gonna be a very good opportunity for me to ask you a few questions that I've been wanting to ask, and I wanted to start from maybe a little bit earlier because I remember when I was searching and researching on Facebook that you and your brother, I think you both have tendencies to tell stories when you can, and that was already really impressive. That was super cool. And so, if you can think of a story that is pretty defining of your childhood, um, I'd like to hear that. And one that comes to mind is the golf ball fiasco. That's one.
Yeah.
That's the one I read, and I was just like, wow, that's incredible. So if you want to tell that
Oh
one, then
man.
that'd be great. But if you can think of a
Man.
better one as well, then up to you.
No, no, that's kind of one of my personal favorites as well. Because just in general, my father and my mother have a lot. I mean, obviously, everyone's parents have a lot to do with the kind of person they become in life, and they just have. Both of my parents have monumental moments where they just showed me not to take shit from other people, but also to just stand up for yourself and whatever. And you realize that people will do what they can when they think they can get away with it, and as long as you show them that's not going to happen, then things change. So yeah, basically, I used to live on a golf course. Like my family lived on like the seventh hole of a golf course in Crofton, Maryland, and all of the houses on that row, their backyards were like right next to the hole. We were like maybe like 25 feet from the hole. So a
Damn.
lot of golfers would hit from the driveway, and sometimes their balls would land in your yard, and sometimes they would hit your house, ruin the siding, and like if you were in the backyard playing around, because at the time we were kids, like probably like elementary school, middle school age, and everybody on that street had kids. We were all like around the same age. So it's like you could really hurt somebody. My mom would garden in the backyard, and she was gardening, and one of the golfers hit the ball into the backyard, like right near her. So when they came up, they were looking for the ball. My mom was like, "Hey, um, we got kids back here. Like I was gardening. You guys just need to make sure that you yell for. Like you guys always come out here. You don't yell for. You need just give people a heads up to like duck and look out. You know, just like a typical golfer would do. Instead of being like, dang, you know, I'm wrong. I apologize. Can I get my ball back? Dude curses at my mom, like, hey, well, fuck you, blah blah blah, this, that, and the other, and then just like just starts just being an ass. And I guess he was a little drunk or something like that. And my dad at the time was on top of the deck, and he heard this guy cursing at my mother. So walks downstairs, jumps over the fence, and goes, "Hey, like, what are you doing?" Dude got like dude got kind of salty and just he was feeling a type of way, so he just goes to his cart and picks up his golf club. He's like, yeah, what the fuck you want? He's like, yo, you cursing at my wife? Like, we about to have a problem. He goes, and then dude like picks up his golf club and starts approaching my dad. So my dad just pulls up his hip and shows the gun on his hip. So caveat to this story for people that obviously don't know, my dad was a police officer, and they immediately got scared. Hey, what are you doing? Don't like I'm gonna call the police. Motherfucker, I am the police. And yeah, shit changed at that point. He was like, now listen, if you ever come over here again, he's like, you're gonna yell for every goddamn time. You ain't getting your motherfucking ball back, and we ain't gonna have no problems no more. And after that, ever since that day, everybody on that hole would yell for the most part. I mean, some still didn't. And then even if they didn't have we would sell golf balls from out of our backyard because we would just accumulate a lot. And I remember we were selling golf balls one time, and one of the golfers was like, "Oh, where'd you get those golf balls?" And I was like, "Oh, from right here." It's like, "Oh, you better watch out. That's Mr. Porter's yard." I'm like, "Yeah, it's my dad." It's like, "Oh, I'll buy 5." I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I thought, bro." I'm like, "Yo, man, we the only black kids on the street, the only black family on the street. You thought I stole these golf balls out my own yard? Come on, dude."
Oh my
So
God.
there was another time my mom chopped down the trees in our backyard onto the golf course because the golf course was saying that they were our trees and wouldn't do anything about them, and my mom kept trying to get the golf course to get rid of them. So then she started chopping them down because she's like, they're my trees. I can do
Damn.
whatever I
What the
want."
hell?
And then they're like, "Wait a second, these are our trees. You can't just do what you want anymore." So she would chop these trees down and then get family members to help drag them across the middle of the freeway so that they couldn't play golf. And
Oh
it
my
was just
God.
yeah, it was crazy. My dad would be so mad. He's like, "Deborah, what, I can't keep warding off the police all this time." So
Holy shit.
yeah, it's just my family's kind of crazy. So yeah, it was a good time growing up. Fun times,
Dude,
man.
amazing. That I didn't get to hear that extra part with the selling the golf balls and all that. That's great. Oh my gosh.
I think that was in probably the comment section or something like that.
The
These stories are
twist.
old.
Dude, the twist though, your life is a storybook. The twist with the dad, your dad, I'm the
I've
police.
heard
Like
that
that was
before.
crazy. Oh my God. Yeah, that was yeah.
One of
So
we used to have people coming over to our house a whole lot when we were younger, and one of the people we used to sponsor Naval Academy students, and so college students would be over our house all the time back when I was in middle school, early high school, and they were like, "Man, this place reminds me of a TV show," and every time somebody new walks in the house, it's like you done changed the channel. I was like, "Oh, that's crazy."
wow, that sounds amazing. I'm curious because that's not really something. Even if you did have a childhood like that, that is very storybook like. Not it's not always in everyone's ability to be able to tell that in the sense of a story. And the way that you wrote it out and the way you just hold it right now is like it's pretty cool. It's pretty it takes skill. And I can see that as well in your dance and even what you do, media based and television, which is telling stories again, just to a larger audience. And so I was curious about that as well. How that kind of developed for you and what story means to you in the sense that how did you grow up with story and how does that develop that relationship with being able to tell somebody a little bit about your life and about other people's.
Well, my father was always a storyteller. Like, he had a story for every situation. Being a police officer, he got into so many crazy different things, and we always joke, we would say that my dad's family is like a game of cops and robbers, because it was like either you were a police officer in his side of the family, or you were some form, like you were locked up for something. And
Damn.
like it was just the funniest thing, because it'd be like one person be doing this, somebody else be doing that, and then they all come together for a barbecue. And it was just like, it was like, hey, remember that time that such as, and it just became such a normal thing. And we always had people over the house. Like, so we lived, I was like born in Washington D.C. and we lived in the city, but by the time I had gotten to like, we were about to be in elementary school. It was like going into elementary school, and my dad had been on TV or something like that. Like he had like shown up on like an episode of Cops, and he didn't realize it until like the
Damn.
episode aired later. And like, I mean, not nothing anything like too serious, but just like it was already getting to be a little bit too much, in the sense of like everybody knew he was a cop. He was like the police officer on the street. So there was like some, like a lot of like gang members that like lived in some of the neighborhoods, and they knew that he was a cop. So it was just kind of like, man, now my family's not safe. So that was the reason why we moved to the suburbs in Maryland. And so because we lived so far away, like in DC is chocolate city. There's plenty of black people. You move to the suburbs, you're just surrounded by white people, which is fine, but it's like, you're away from your own people and your culture. So what my parents would do, that's the reason why we sponsored the Naval Academy midshipmen. That's why my parents would make it a big point to invite their friends to come out and visit us all the way in Maryland, because it's only like a 45-minute drive, but back then that was like a big deal. And so they would always have parties and host people. And when you're hosting people, like, what do? You tell stories, you grill up some stuff. Like, it's like there was always some kind of crazy incident that would happen that would just turn into a whole thing. And like retelling and reliving those moments, because you don't get to see everybody all the time, is like kind of, I guess, where it started.
Got it. I see. That makes sense. It really is like a TV show in a sense, right? At your house. Is that what it felt like when you were just
You know, the thing is, as a kid, you don't realize how crazy all this stuff is,
That's
because
true.
to you it's just normal. Like, I have an identical twin brother. People are like, "What's it like to have a twin brother?" I'm like, "I don't know. I haven't not been a twin, so I can't tell you what it's like to not be like that." You just, whatever your normal is, you find everything else to be like, everything else is different. It wasn't until I got to like maybe college age that I realized like the way that I grew up and like the kind of experiences I've had aren't necessarily the norm.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's hard to have that type of self-awareness as a kid.
Hmm.
But that is something that around college time, especially for me as well, that was starting to be developed, right? Like you start to realize that your normal is a subjective,
Right.
and that a lot of that, what you've experienced, is actually and who you are. It's not just life, it's actually these
Right.
things that formed you. And yeah, I guess how is that kind of for you? I guess in terms of now who you are, being able to look back at your past and see how it shapes you. And this is a big question, and I want to format it more into a more specific thing. But let's get into career-wise, I guess, because
Hmm.
I'm curious how you ended up here as what you're doing.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I remember you telling me like technical directing, and even before we got on this, you were telling me that you needed all of this equipment to do your job at home, right? And it seems like there's a whole ton of knowledge that you are actually holding in that head of yours that we know, like us as b-boys and our connection we have, like none of us have understand what your profession is. So I guess let's start from the back. Let's start from how did you kind of decide that you wanted to start to pursue media and communication in college?
Oh
Was that
man.
a whim? Like, because for me it was a whim, so it's completely fine if that was a thing. But if there was any type of indicator that told you that you wanted to do this, I'm curious how what those indicators were, and if breaking played a part in that at all. Like even so, I'm curious about all that. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of a whim. I think you guys give me way more credit than I actually deserve because there's so much more I need to learn. Like, I'm constantly meeting other people that do my job, and I'll just be talking to them, and I'm like, man, I have no idea what you're talking about. So now I need to go home and research. But yeah, they're kind of linked. It was kind of whimsical and somewhat not whimsical. Basically, in middle school, I had started breaking, and it was like me, my brother, my crewmate Coleman, and like a couple other people. And we would, my mom was very adamant about making us want to go to college, so she would take us on road trips to different colleges and would bring our
Oh.
friends with us. And like that way we could all like look at this university and see what the life was like and yada yada. And so we would, whenever we would go to these new places, we would bring a video camera with us, and we would just like
Oh,
record us like dancing in malls and flipping off walls
that's
and
dope.
stuff in hotels and just all kinds of dumb shit. And so we would shoot it, and then I would just edit the footage and then upload it, and then yeah, like that was just like the start of it all. And then in high school, there was like a media, like a film class or something like that, and I took the film class, and there was in that film class like I guess the teacher liked me and like a couple other students, and so he made an independent study course just for the three of us, and we just went around. I think it was my
Shit.
senior year, and we just got to play around with like cameras and make whatever the fuck project we wanted for uh, yeah, for school. And so at that point I was like, well, I don't know what I want to do, but I like messing with this film stuff. So which all started as like me just recording breaking. So I was like, I guess I'll go to school for that. And then I went to school, didn't get into the film program, and then I was like, all right, well, I'm not too pressed on it, like, because I also was like half-assing applying to the film program too, because I just wasn't that passionate about it. Like my other friends were really into it, and then what ended up happening is I like talked to some dude, and he was like, "Yeah, I didn't get into it either. Just take media and communications; it's the same thing." And I was like, "All right, yeah, I mean that's fine. I just need to choose a major." And then it just so happened like everything kind of just fell into place, which is kind of the story of my life. Um, I got into the media and communications course. The media and communications course required you to get an internship in order to graduate because it was a new course. So like the head of the department wanted to make sure that everybody was getting jobs so that he could prove like the course had merit, which was the best thing that could ever happen to me. I got an internship from like one of the previous students that had worked the course and graduated. Started working there under him. He taught me just about everything I know and got me like started. And
Is
then
this
at
the internship at the news station, or is this something else?
Yes, this is the
Okay.
internship at the news station. So I went there, just worked my ass off, and then they offered me a job when I graduated, and then slowly worked my way up through
I
the
remember, sorry,
positions.
I remember
No,
seeing a
go ahead.
post on Facebook that talked about that, how you got offered a job right out of school, and you're
Oh
like,
yeah,
poor
yeah,
kid didn't know what he was getting into.
yeah. Yo, man. I mean, not to talk smack about a company, but like, actually, so here's the thing. I'll say this: that company, it was like probably one of the worst work experiences I've ever had, and yet at
Oh
the
shit.
same time, it's like the best thing for me. I talked to like other film friends that work in the film industry, and they've said the same thing. They're like, "Yo, you always have to have that like one shitty job that had you doing way more positions than you should be doing, way more workload, and that you're not getting paid the proper amount because it gives you a level of self-respect and ability that you wouldn't have otherwise." So before I worked there, it was like I was just editing videos, and I just loved editing videos. I'm like, this is great. Then I started working for the news station, and I realized, oh, I only like editing videos if it's my content. I don't like just editing footage. And then it's like from there, I did editing. I did the lighting. I was camera. I was
Damn.
yeah. I became the production manager, and like it was I did like 5 different positions, and every time I took on a new position, I was still doing the old position plus doing the new position. And amongst those positions, one of them was technical director because we had the big system called the TriCaster, which is what does all the live streaming because we were a news station. So yeah, after doing all of that, like I learned a whole lot that I wouldn't have been able to learn in any other place. And the one thing is, working at the news station, it was a non-profit news station. It wasn't someplace like Fox or anything like that. So the entire
Okay.
time I was thinking, oh, well, if I apply somewhere else, my experience isn't valid because I've only been working in this nonprofit. They don't have the same systems that these other established news companies have, and blah, blah, blah. So, like, man, if I apply anywhere else, I'm not going to get the job because they're going to know that I'm a fake and I'm a phony and, like, just mad imposter syndrome, just like anybody. And
It's real.
it just got to a point where I was just like, all right, I can't do this anymore. Can't stay here. I don't like working under these conditions. It was, we don't have to get into the conditions, but it was just like, man, you're just like always on call and not getting paid properly.
Always
So
on call. Oh my god.
yeah, yeah. It's like, all right, you'd be in the middle of dance practice, get a phone call, and then you answer it to see if it's something like they don't even tell you what it is. Like you missed the call. They send you a voice message. Oh, hey, call me back, or like send you a text message. Hey, call, and then you call them back thinking it's something urgent, and it's like, well, since you're on the phone, you're obviously free, so come to the
Oh my
office. We need you
god.
to do this. I'm like, I ain't doing this no more. So an opportunity presented itself for me to come and live in LA. So I was just living in LA, traveled around a bit. While I was living there, I was kind of stuck. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a job, and basically, I had saved up all this money from like living at home for like the past couple of years that I was living and working full time, and so I was like, okay, well, I have this free time and I have money, so let me just travel. So anytime I would be between gigs, like I would pick up a single gig and then I would work it and then I would have nothing to do, so I would just fly somewhere. And then I would stay there for a little while. So I like went to Mexico for like 2 3 weeks and stayed with a friend in Minnesota, and then I went to Japan and Korea and Hong Kong for like a month,
Damn.
and then I came back, and then I went to Europe for 2 months. Like I bought a one-way ticket to Europe because one of my friends from Mexico was judging a competition in Germany, and then the German friend had told both of us to come through, and Mexican friend invited me to come through. So then I stayed there for like the first 2 weeks, and then just started backpacking around the rest of Europe. And yeah, I ended up staying there for like 2 months. And then when I came back, I was like, dang, if this keeps up, I'm actually going to be broke. So if there's one thing I've realized about me, the main thing that motivates me is deadlines, but most of all, poverty. So so once I realized, okay, if I don't change something soon and stop getting like one gig at a time, like every other month, I really need to fix my life situation. I just immediately hopped on some job applications and ended up getting like an editing job, and this like the first job that springboarded me into all the stuff that I'm currently doing happened to be looking for somebody that did exactly what I did at the news station, working as a technical director with the exact same system that I was familiar with. And yeah, I just happened to luck out, and then I worked there for a while, and then from working there, I ended up meeting more people. Like working on that set ended up putting me in touch with a lot more people that I ended up working with, and down the line they would suggest me for other things, and people would break off and make new companies, and then they're like, okay, well, we remember Ryan from the last company, so let's bring Ryan on for this project and for that project. And so yeah, everything has just been networking and connections, whether I knew it or not.
That's good to hear. That's what I've been told as well whenever I ask
Mm-hmm.
about advice for the
Oh
industry, because I think it's another reason why I want to talk to you is because we're in very similar industries.
yeah.
And yeah, our paths are definitely going to be crossing more, especially with Stance. It's good to see you working with them and
Man,
getting to
that
do all that stuff, man.
that was So I never told Daniel this, but that was like a really big moment for me because I remember back when I was working at the news station and I was like watching Red Bull BC1 live, and I realized I'm like, dang, this is a live stream. How crazy would that be if I could work on like a live stream for Red Bull? And like the thing is, Stans like Daniel Zhu, he was on Strife TV back in the day. He was like one of the big players in Strife TV, and they were based in the DMV. And so back
Oh
then, I
yeah.
would always see him like he would come to jams, he would record everything, and he was traveling around. And I'm like, dang, like I'm like, this guy's got it. Like he's just like doing all this stuff, like, and he's like working in film and breaking. Like, dang, I want to get to that point. Like, I want to be able to work with this guy one day. And but I was never trying to look like a fanboy, so I was just like, I was like, dang, he's like, all right, cool. One day I'm gonna work with these mofos. And yeah, so it was really funny to like go from trying to work with them but not knowing how to do it to like getting asked to direct the live stream for Red Bull through Stance. I was like, oh snap! But yeah, I never told Daniel because I'm like, nah, he'll never know. But yeah,
Bro,
that was a big thing. So mad thanks to like Daniel and especially to Anderson who brought me on in the first place. Yeah.
same. Yeah, Anderson is the one who brought me on too. He's
Hmm.
a fellow alumni. So Anderson, Daniel, if
Oh
you're listening to
really?
this, yes, he is. So Anderson, Daniel, if you're listening to this, we appreciate you,
Yo, much
dude.
appreciated.
Life is crazy. How these things just align, kind
Oh
of,
yeah.
and it's not even like you approached them; they approached you, right?
Well,
Or
so they did, but it's
okay,
just funny because once again, this just speaks to you just talk to people like real people, like b boys, and not just b boys, but everybody can be a little haughty at times, like oh I'm too this or I'm too that, and even like sometimes like I feel like I can get like that every once in a while or something stupid, and it's dumb, but just like Anderson, I used to see him at practice at open house. And at
oh,
one point, he was just gone for like months at a time. I hadn't seen him in months. And so he like popped back up, and I was like, Anderson, like, where have you been? He's like, oh, I've been doing this, and I was doing that, and like I was doing this live streaming thing, and I'm like, oh, live streaming, like, bro, like I work in live streaming. If you ever need like any tips, like, yo, just call me, text me, like whatever. I'll help you out. And so I'm like just saying this as like a yeah, man. Like if you ever have any questions, I can like text you some tips or like tell you like what things are. And like he's like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna pick your brain and ask you for coffee someday. And I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, yeah, yeah, sure. And then like a couple months later, that's like maybe 3 to 6 months later, he asked me to coffee finally, and we're just sitting there, and he's just like grilling me on all these questions, like how much does this system cost? Like what is this? Like how many? Like and I'm like, dang, like this is a whole setup. I'm like, I feel like I'm working right now. I'm like, man, I'm like, all this for a
where's my money?
scone? Like, and then so like I'm like, dang, there's a lot of questions, man. Like, and then finally he's just like, yo, so Ryan, would you be comfortable doing the live stream for us? Because like, well, because I'm literally telling him all this stuff, and I'm just saying like, yeah, dude, like here, this is how you do this stuff. It's kind of hard for me to explain how this works, but maybe like you call me or FaceTime me, I'll tell you how everything works. Like just thinking, oh yeah, you'll do the thing, and then I'll just be there as like a tech consultant. Like you can call me if you want, like obviously no charge. And he's just like, oh yeah, no, can we like bring you on? I'm like, oh. I didn't know this was an interview. Make that two scones.
Okay, so
So
that's what
yeah,
happened. Okay, wow,
supernatural. It just kind of happened like that, and then it was actually mad funny because they had I had just went to Red Bull like a couple months later before the qualifier. I was
dude.
doing
Yeah.
yeah I was doing press for the Red Bull BC1 LA Cypher, and I had to go to the Red Bull LA headquarters, and like
Oh shit.
we're doing some morning show like footage, and then that was at, like I had to go over there like 5, 6 in the morning to do this crap,
Shit.
and then
The same
I
day of the
had
competition?
no 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 no.
Oh,
This is
okay,
like
okay,
a couple months before the it
okay,
was like a
okay.
month before the competition, but I had a production meeting at the Red Bull headquarters like
Oh,
4 hours later. So I drove all the way to Santa Monica, do this shoot like fucking dance and all this other crap, like dance for the TV, and then come back here, shower, take a nap, and then drive back to Santa Monica to talk to production about how we're gonna do the live stream in Houston. And I'm like, man, this is
Wow.
crazy. And I'm like, man, like I have to, I have to. If I win LA, then I screw up the gig for Houston. And so I specifically remember Daniel coming up to me at LA and was like, hey, Ryan, cool, like, really hope you do well, but also hopefully you lose by semifinals or, like, top 8, so, just to be safe. And I'm like, huh? And then I found out later that if you made it to the finals, you were going to you were going to
Did
the
he actually
Houston
say
Cypher
that?
regardless. Yeah, he said it! Daniel's cracking me up, man. He's like, yeah, good luck today, but just don't win because we need you. And I'm like,
I'm dead, dude. That's
Alright.
amazing. No
Yeah.
bullshit English. Thank you for that. I appreciate
Yeah!
it. Thank you for that. I think all the b-boys who watch Red Bull BC will know exactly what I'm talking about. But
Oh
you can
my
thank this
God.
man for telling it as it is and showing it as it is.
Oh my God. Yeah, man. Muggles love the top-down view, man. I don't know what it is.
I was watching the India Cypher like a few days ago, and I'm
Mhm.
watching Killer Koila like do his thing, and he's about to hit his blow up, and then all of a sudden it cuts to like, what the fuck? Like there's a camera all the way over there, and I can't even see the move. I'm like, who the fuck? I mean, that's kind of cool, but no, don't do that, please. No, thank you for
Yeah,
not.
yeah. I'm like, look, man. I'm like, I know that you guys. I'm like, I know what the Muggles are trying to watch, but I'm like, I also know what the B-boys are trying to watch. And honestly speaking, I'm like, Muggles aren't really watching this. B-boys are watching this. So I'm like, I'm gonna cater to the B-boys first, and then the Muggles second. So.
I like that philosophy as well. Cater to the people that are true to you. So, I wanted to ask about just what we just talked about, how you were set up to technical direct for Houston, and yet at the same time you qualified for the fucking competition.
Yeah,
That type
they
of
invited me, so I
yeah.
didn't have to qualify necessarily.
I think
But
well the invite, you position yourself for the invite, and that's definitely something you were doing. I saw you.
I guess you
Showing
could
up,
say that.
Cypher Cup, yeah, all these things. You were showing up over and over again. So,
Well, they
yeah.
asked me before Cypher Cup, actually.
Wow, really?
They had asked me in like January or February, like early January or February. So, yeah, it was like before I think I even hit any of the jams that year, I had already been invited. Like,
Do you know what it
it,
was that who reached out to you, or and like why they decided to pick you as a
yeah,
qualifier?
it was Lean Rock. I have
Mm,
no idea. Actually, no, I think it could have been after. Maybe it was after Cypher Addicts, but
uh,
I don't remember. But I mean, I'd have to go through my messages. But either way, I can't tell you why they picked me, but
I can see why.
but I,
No worries. You don't have to explain yourself.
yeah,
The thing I wanted
yeah.
to ask you about is just how, not how you got qualified, but how while you are doing all of this work, and I think both of us are blessed to be able to have work that is not too far away from what we love doing.
Mm,
That's right. And the gap keeps getting closed as we continue to push
right,
forward.
right, right.
But at the same time, being so into both worlds, like having a foothold in the culture, right? In breaking,
Mm,
in the craft, and yet still being able to maintain a professional standpoint and being able to work a job that
mm.
I'm sure you're spending a lot more time than you should be right now at home, is what you've been saying.
I
But
mean, this is about the normal amount of time I spend at home. The only thing that's different is I just don't leave to practice.
oh yeah, true. But just like like you said, you've been working more at home than you were at work,
Yeah.
right? Which is
Yeah, that's because setup is a whole thing, man. Like, yeah.
yeah. But I guess I just wanted to like figure out how exactly, and this I'm trying to ask this in a way that isn't kind of, because we were talking about how this is just your life and that's what you do, but
Mhm.
from an outside perspective, being able to work like a full-time job and also still kill it in breaking, that's not something that a lot of people can do. which is why I
Well,
think I respect you a lot. So I'm curious, like, what what do both? What is how does what does competitive breaking like mean to you in the sense of what drives you to continue pushing forward and killing it while at the same time still maintaining a full-time job?
well, so first clarification, I'm not actually full time. I'm a freelancer.
Oh, you are.
So yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh.
So I have like one or two companies that I work for predominantly, and then I'll pick up gigs here and there. People will call in and ask me
Mm.
to work something. So yeah, like that's why I'm saying I spend around the same amount of time as home at home, because some weeks I'll go 1 or 2 days of work, and then other weeks I'll have like 5, 6, 7 days in a row and not have a break. So it really depends on the type of week that I'm having. But honestly, it really comes down to one. I'm just really selfish. Like I want it all. Like there is this like unspoken rule in breaking that is like, if you're a dope b-boy, you don't have your life together. Or if you've got your life together, you got like the good job and you've got like enough money to survive, and you're doing well for yourself, then usually you're a whack b-boy. And I'm like, dog, I don't want to be a whack b-boy, and I don't want to like be like living in my like grandma's basement, like hitting jams every weekend or something like that. Like I'm like, I want to be able to fend for myself and to be able to break. So I guess basically it just goes back to like when I started breaking. All of, like the really dope b-boys when I was growing up were like all the people in my scene that I looked up to were like, you know, they were like in their 20s, and as far as I knew, they were like living at home and they were just winning money off jams, and they were working like, a day-to-day job, like a day job, and living paycheck to paycheck. And that shit honestly terrified me. I'm like, yo, I'm not trying to live like that. And so, and back then, like this is like the late 2000s, like early 2010s. Like back then, it was like we didn't have, like me and my crew, we didn't have any people to kind of look to that had both worlds, like the best of both worlds. So we just kind of had to like make a way for ourselves, and that's the reason why I love my crew. Like Elusives and even my original crew, Heaven's crew, like we've always been on the same tip. It's like, yes, we love breaking and we always focus on breaking, but it's like, yo, we also talk about like how to get our life together. Like, yo, here's how you manage your monthly budget. Like, this is a Google spreadsheet that I use to like
Damn.
calculate my expenses. Like, yo, here's the stocks that you should probably invest in. Like, yo, this is like all of these things. Like, oh, here's a resume. This is how you interview for a job. Like,
Wow.
these kind of conversations is like what we'll talk about. It's never strictly breaking. Like, it's more than that, because crew is family, and it's like we look out for each other like family. So it's like we love breaking because we're connected through breaking. We'll always talk about that, but because we also have like some of the same goals, we're all trying to be like elevate to the next level. Like, that's always been the goal. Like, so even in my original crew, Heaven's crew, like the founder of our crew, he doesn't really break anymore, but he made his own six-figure company, and like his
Damn.
wife like has runs her own two restaurants. And it's like, they'll when I remember when I was moving to LA, they came to my going away party and they were like, yo, if you ever need anything, you want to start a business or anything like that, just call us, ask us. Like, we got like, it's everybody's on the lookout for each other in that sense. So yeah, that's
That's
that's mhm.
that's incredible to hear. I haven't heard of many. Well, it doesn't seem like it's such a common what's the word, discourse amongst
Mm,
b-boys to be talking about that kind of stuff. Like looking in the
mm,
long-term picture, because this is life goal stuff that you guys are helping each other set up for,
yeah.
and that's really great to hear. What do you think? because I think I've noticed this as well, just being part of the college b-boy scene, and I guess interacting with breakers every now and then from jams. But b-boys, I think the culture so far there, and this is a very umbrella statement, but it seems like that life of traveling and battling and being a warrior is very romanticized, and you almost have to give up having financial stability for it, because
Yeah.
that's just how it is for most b-boys, and that's kind of almost not been accepted, but it's been accepted as, yeah, it's been kind of seen as a thing that that's how it is to be a competitive b-boy. But
Right, right.
being able to change that discourse is actually, I feel like, wouldn't be that hard, just because b-boys already, and breakers, sorry, breakers have,
Whatever.
yeah, I don't want to disclude, but
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, I
they,
was, I was like, I thought it was more of a b-boy versus breaking. I mean, breakdance thing, but no, 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 breakers for
right,
sure,
yeah,
for
yeah, yeah,
sure.
yeah, just
Let us be gender neutral.
exactly, yeah, and I feel like we already have so many traits, the perseverance and the battle mentality to not give up and continue pushing forward. All these things are so, they're not commonly found within your average individual, and they can be, I feel as if they can be easily translated to other aspects of life, whether that be career or mentality. So I feel like if we just happen to tap into the right conversations and the right ways of thinking, that b-boys could easily excel in finances and
Well, yeah.
in academics, right? So I guess coming from you, who is actually on, like, at least pursuing both, being able to kill it in breaking, kill it in life. What do you think are some mistakes? That what do you think are some, like, common mistakes that you see in the breaking scene that, I guess, kind of limit the potential of breakers,
Well,
like mentality wise, or just maybe even not even just breakers individually, but as a community, as a scene.
well, there's two things. One, we'll talk like if I could do college over again, I would have traveled way more often because there's like, man, like I would have like gotten a more regular job because the thing is, you're a college student. People don't care if you take time off. Like they might, but if you leave that job, guess what? You can get another minimum wage paying job that will treat you like shit down the street, and you can always take off. So it's like, and then also like you can choose your schedule so you don't have work on Fridays. I mean, you don't have school on Fridays or Mondays if you're lucky enough, like whatever. This is usually by like your junior or senior year that you can start taking less classes. But you can fly around, you can make the most of your situation, and it's not even about like people think about flying and traveling is so expensive, but it's actually like really cheap if you know how to do it. Like people hate on Spirit, but Spirit can cost you like maybe $100 to fly to some jam in the middle of nowhere, and everybody knows somebody. Just like we were saying in the film industry, everybody like I've gotten all my jobs, almost all of my jobs through word of mouth. Like you can message the event organizer, or every b-boy knows a b-boy that knows somebody, so it's like, oh, I'm planning on going here, I think such and such might know somebody that goes here, and they can hook you up with a place to stay. So it's so easy to travel as a b-boy, and it's relatively cheap, and if you're only going for a weekend, you only need a backpack, so you don't have to pay for bags. So
True.
yeah, I would say travel more, but obviously be smart about it. Choose which jams you're going to travel to, because we would travel maybe like, I was lucky in college, like me and my crew, my mom had like a 9-seater van or something like that, and we would
Damn.
just like all borrow her car for a weekend and then just drive to like 12 hours to Atlanta and hit a jam with the entire crew, or like something like that, or drive to Indiana and stuff. But so that's the first thing. But that's not a mistake that people are making. I would say
Sorry,
one of
before we continue, hold that thought, because I'm curious what the value you find in traveling is. And
oh
I
my
think you've
god,
already said connections, right? That's a big one.
right,
And then making the most of your trip is another one that you kind of already sort of touched on, right? Because being able to contact the organizer and meet people, right? So I wanted you to expand on that, if that's okay.
Man, the biggest thing about traveling is it reignites your fire. If you've ever noticed the people that stay in one place in battle, there's so many like unspoken rules and mentalities in breaking. Like one of the things that people do is they're like, oh, I can't leave until I win a jam in my own city, or like until I've got this level of respect and this kind of stuff. And it's like, you can talk to a lot of b-boys. Like there's so few b-boys that have like made a name for themselves in their city first. Well, I mean that used to be the case, but like nowadays usually you go out somewhere else and that's when you really start killing it. And then once you take that step, then you start getting respect from back home. Like, and I can just list off a whole bunch of names now that's happened to. But I mean, one of the people I was just talking to about it like the other day was Jason from Canada,
Mm,
Unknown Floor Force. He was like, yeah, man,
it's
like
crazy.
I've known Jason for like, dang, it's been like 6 years now, something crazy,
Yeah.
but maybe even seven.
Did you
But
meet him in Canada?
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Yeah. I used to be on a choreo team called Culture Shock
You were on Culture
DC.
Shock?
I was on
Oh
Culture
shit.
Shock DC. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So and they would do a showcase every year in Canada. There was a Canada showcase in Ottawa, the capital,
Oh.
and Jarek and Jason. Jason is Jarek is Jason's brother, and Mark. Like the three of them, they're all nasty. They're all nasty. Check them out. Unknown Floor Force. Shout outs to them. But yeah, they I would see them at the Cyphers in the pre-show for this showcase, and then we became cool through that, and then just would see them at jams like when I would travel to Canada. Otherwise, but Jason, he was like all him and his brother's been nasty for years. Like ever since the first time I met them, I'm like, oh, they're dope. Why does nobody know who they are? And it wasn't until Jason moved to London. He lived in like Europe for like 2 years.
Oh shit.
That he was like, oh yeah, that's when I started getting like invited to things, and people started shouting me out
Mm.
and like putting me on for things. And I'm like, that's crazy because you were already crazy in my mind, but the thing is, you always kind of have to grow out of people's where they put you in their head. Like another example is my crewmate Kurt Rage. Like Kurt, to me, Kurt has always been one of the nastiest dudes in our area, and he got put on and did Red Bull BC one the DC Cypher, but even then, like a lot of people were like, yeah, they saw him, but he was still like the punk little kid Kurt Rage because as a kid, man, Kurt was a little piece of shit, bro. Like he was the worst, always typing in all caps on Facebook and stuff. Like, oh man, he was so annoying. But but like it wasn't until he moved to Chicago that he started getting like actual respect. Like people people liked his stuff, but it was like I guess they wouldn't really take him seriously. And then when he went out to Chicago and then started battling around the Midwest and like entering everything and people started really paying attention to him, like he got his respect in the Midwest, and then back home, all of a sudden, when he moved back, and like then he's getting judging gigs, and he's getting exhibition battles, he's getting invited to all these different jams, and it's like, man, I'm like, in my mind, this dude has been nasty, but now the opportunities are coming, but it didn't come until he had moved back. You know what I mean? So that's the first thing is like when you move, you start meeting other people. Like not even moving, but just traveling because you battle all the same people. Like so many people get bored of battling the same people. You see the same people. You kind of have in your head where your skill level is like
Right. It kind of becomes the
next to
mold,
someone else.
right? Yeah.
Right. So you're like, okay, I know I'm this good and I should be able to beat these people, but beating this person is like this difficult. And like if I beat this person, I have to throw these moves and I have to like do this kind of thing, or I have to be like you just start thinking too much and everything becomes entirely too calculated. Whereas when you go out into a brand new scene, nobody knows you, nobody has any idea what you are, what you're about, or anything like that. They're judging you strictly based off your dancing and that first impression. And so you meet like that's where you get your confidence from, honestly, because like back in my area and even on my crew, I was like the weakest member on my crew,
Mm.
like easily. But then I started traveling, and I think the first like trip that I took by myself to a place that I didn't know anybody was I went to Mexico, and I like went to Mexico, stayed with a friend, and he just took me around to a bunch of jams and introduced me to a bunch of people. And I'd be at battles, and I started getting compliments, and I'm like super self conscious of my style. I'm like, man, I hate the way I move. Like I hated looking at my breaking shit. Like it all just looking at what I did, I hated it, everything about it. And I would go, and people were like, "Oh man, you're dope," and I'm like, "Dude, these guys like." I'm like, yo, but you haven't seen my crewmates. Like, wait until you see my crewmates. And I just would always, they would tell me that I was dope, and I couldn't even accept it. I'm like, no, you got to look at like my friends. Like, they're way better. And it took a while of traveling like that until I realized, oh, they actually think that because they're not comparing me to like anybody else. They're just going based off of me right now. And so you start to like meet people and they appreciate you for what you have. Whereas like sometimes like just at least for me growing up, like people looked at my crewmates because all my crewmates were nasty. And so for a lot of the time it was kind of like we would travel together as a group and people would talk to our crew and be like, oh, you guys are dope, but they're looking at like all my crewmates and telling them they're dope, and then I'm off at the side, and then they like it feels like oh, and because I told your crewmates they're dope, like I'm telling you this because I don't want to be rude, and I honestly believe sometimes it really was like that, and sometimes it wasn't. Like sometimes they did think that, but when you get that all the time, you're just kind of you can't really tell the difference, and so when you start traveling for yourself, you can really see where you are valued individually, and you start to stop caring so much about it all. You're like, oh, people do fuck with my style. Like, I should fuck with my style.
That's a really good point. Being able to push it's like pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. The idea that it's never really the perfect time, right? Like you don't need some sort of external validation to tell you that you're ready to travel. Because
Right.
just the act of traveling, whether or not you make it past prelims, you're already exposing yourself to new worlds,
Yep.
and you're seeing that your scene isn't the world. You know, I think that's a really big thing that I struggle with. Just being able to see the same people over and over again, and
Yeah.
just being in the same space, it feels kind of limiting in a way. I think it's a mental barrier, but it's also just like we associate spaces with our mentalities.
Of
And I'm
course.
curious, did moving to LA, do you feel like that had any influence on your training or your
Dude,
breaking?
100%. Moving to LA made me such a better breaker because when I got out here, it's like I didn't know anybody. And so the only thing I could do was train. It's like, all right, I don't know people in LA, all the practice sessions are closed and it takes a while to really get into the scene because especially back in the day, I feel like now LA is much more open to people. Like everyone's like a lot more chill, but when I first got here, it was just like, oh man, there's so many sub scenes within the scene. Like I've never been to a place like this before, cause I've like, yo, well, man, this is kind of going on a tangent,
No
but like
worries.
this kind of goes back to the travel thing. Like you have to travel and meet people and just do things because what people don't see in the grind and like in you going and like at least getting in people's minds to these levels that they want to get to is I've taken L's in more places than people have even been to. Like I've been to more countries and not made it out of like prelims, and it's like people see when I win or when I like do decently well, but like people aren't watching you lose, and I'm like I'm losing all the time, and nobody ever has a problem with me when I lose. Like people only ever have a problem if I win something. But the thing is, like you've just got to lose. You have to get so comfortable with losing. Like you've got it. Like well, obviously not comfortable, but the more you lose, like winning and losing is dumb. This is totally on a tangent because we're not even talking about LA
No, this
anymore.
is
But
great.
like
This is very relevant. Continue, please.
but winning and losing is it's really stupid because it's not important But at the same time, like, we all know, like, yeah, dance to express, not to impress, like, yada yada. But after you've been breaking for a certain amount of time, if you haven't won something, you feel like, dang, like, I've seen all these other people win, I've seen these other people, like, get this success that I'm looking for, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Like, what haven't I done? Like, what am I missing? Like, what is my I don't get it. And then you finally win a jam. I remember the first jam I won. I felt like it was like one of my worst performances, and I was like, dang, I won this jam, but I don't feel good about my rounds. Whereas there's been plenty of jams that I've lost in like top 8, top 16, and I threw like some of the best rounds of my life. And I'm like, well, I might have won this jam, but I'm never going to look at footage of this jam. But I'll watch footage of this jam where I threw this round or this, that, and the other. And it's like the jam that I won, I threw the rounds that I thought would win me the battles. Versus the jams that I lost, that I loved looking at the footage of, are the jams that I was like, I'm just going to throw something crazy. I'm gonna just do the craziest thing I can do. Like, what's the most fun I can have right now? And I've always enjoyed looking at those battles way more. And it just so happens that nowadays, the fun rounds are starting to be rounds that can win me battles. But
Like the
once you get
glitch
more
2K.
comfortable, oh, yo, all
That's
right.
funny.
So the thing is, like, people were like, man, that glitch 2K was nice. Like, I don't know if you saw, but if you look at the comments on the video I posted on Instagram, Bebo comments and he said, "Good thing it wasn't against me. I had battled
What the
Bebo
fuck?
a year ago at Cypher Addicts in the
Okay.
semifinals. I had pulled out the glitch 2K. I'm like, this is the only thing I can do to beat him. I fucking crashed. I crashed hard as hell, man. Like that's the thing is like." It's not always gonna be a win. Like even against Kid Karam, I was like, all right, well, like I'm like, yo, I felt like he totally smoked my first round. I'm like, well, if I'm gonna lose, I'm gonna at least feel like I did something first. So
Mm.
let me just like, I'm like, it's all or nothing right now, baby.
Dude, that
So
was clean as hell. Like I think just being able to execute that move under that pressure, that says something. And you're right. I feel like it goes right into exactly what you were talking about. The 99% invisible that no people aren't seeing. All those
yeah,
losses, all those attempts versus Bebo versus other people you probably try to throw that move against.
oh yeah,
It all like
yeah,
aligned into that one moment. And
yeah.
I guess it's if you don't mind me now kind of taking a
Go
tangent,
ahead.
just how I was gonna ask you. My next question was gonna be what you see the value of the life value of breaking is in, because there is definitely it's very hard to see like obviously financial. It's probably the worst financial ROI you can do, but at the same time,
Mm,
it's kind of like you have to ask yourself, what is this doing for me long term? And that point about having to push yourself out of that bubble and how to having to experience all of those losses, that is already a really good start to what breaking means to on a larger scale. And so I was curious what else you saw or you see in this practice. What makes you get up and spend hours a week going to train to win competitions, to continue to pursue this thing even into your late 20s, because that's something I definitely admire and I want to pursue. But even at my age 22, like I have doubts, I feel like, like everything you said, never making it, not never, but hardly ever making it past prelims, and seeing my growth, asking myself, is it worth it if I'm gonna put this time? How far am I gonna get? Like long term, and could I be using this time to do other things? Like, what is the value of breaking to me? And so I was curious, what is your value to breaking?
dude. Well, first and foremost, the doubts never subside. Like you will always doubt yourself, and I just have to remind myself that I don't care. Like, because at the end of the day, like one of the things that I've always realized is I've been breaking so long, it's just become a part of my life. Whether I compete, like I could never compete again tomorrow, and I would still be breaking. Like people are always ask, you'll always hear somebody ask, like, "Yo, what are you gonna do when you quit breaking?" Like, yo, that's not a question. because I'm not gonna stop breaking. I might stop competing, sure, but I'm never gonna stop trying to get better. Like it, people focus so much on competition, but it's like, yo, it's an art form just as much as it's like a battle.
That's
So
true.
that's the first thing. Um, but me and my crew, we always talk about it's the Ouroboros. It's everything is connected, right? So just like the serpent eating its own tail, art imitates life, just like life imitates art. So you have breaking, but everything is breaking, right? So breaking is how, like, people talk about, oh, you're a visual learner, you're this kind of learner. It's like I've learned that how you learn best in breaking is how you learn best in life. And I don't, like, we might have talked about that, but I didn't
Yeah.
realize exactly how to approach everything. Like, I've always approached other art forms the way I've approached breaking. So it's like right now I'm like picking up guitar. I'm like starting to
Oh,
learn guitar, right?
nice.
And one of the things you do when you first start breaking is what? Like, yeah, you learn the basics and you're like, all right, I know the basics now. Now, where's the flares at? Like, show me a 90. I'm trying to get some crazy stuff. Like it's like you're all about all these big fancy moves, and it's like it wasn't until I moved to LA that I started really training my like footwork all over again. I'm like talking to my crewmate Kurt Rage because this goes back to like the
Mm,
how my breaking changed when I moved here. I got to LA and and I only had like Kurt was the only one awake because he was living in Chicago, so he was the closest one in the time differential. And we would just talk about breaking all the time, and I'm like, man, how do you get your form like that? And he's like, yo, man, practice your basics. I'm like, man, I thought I knew my basics, and then I just started practicing them all over again, and it's like, and then I realized, oh, my form looks so much better once I really started practicing it and like looking at it. So it's like with guitar, it's like, all right, cool, I'm gonna practice my basics every day. I'm not gonna try and do no crazy riffs or like anything like that. It's like I'm just gonna get my basics down pat because once I know this stuff like the back of my hand, everything else will become easier. And I've always taken that approach to like every kind of art. Like even my brother and I make music and we do the same thing with that. But at the end of the day, I've never taken that approach until recently to career and life goals, right? So just like in breaking, YouTube University's got everything. Like we focus so much on like the dance and like art forms, but everything is at the tip of your fingers, like on the internet. So just like I can look up tutorials, like people will in breaking they'll be like, oh, I'm too good for a workshop or something like that. Like mentally you're like, oh, I'm
yeah.
too good for a workshop, or you just think, well, I can see this person in practice so I can ask them. But it's like it's different when you're paying them to like actually break it down and
Oh,
teach
yeah.
them. Like, and so when it comes to life, I was like, man, I've always just kind of thought like learning doesn't stop in school. You're in school and you're like you grow up and your parents like got a mortgage on a house, or they're paying taxes and they're doing all this stuff and they're acquiring equity and they do all these things and interest and bank accounts and stocks and like all this other stuff, and you're just like, dang, like I guess I'll just learn that when I grow up, because you just assume that when I become an adult, I'm just gonna know these things. Like someone along the way will just teach you. Like somewhere
Mm,
it happens. And the older I got, the more I realized, yo, this shit don't just happen. You gotta make it happen. Like
yeah.
there's nobody that's just gonna sit there and just spoon feed it to you. You can ask and they can help you out, but like nothing helps you more than teaching yourself. So in the same way I had to learn the basics of like breaking, I started doing the exact same thing with life. Like, oh, I realize I'm like not a very good listener. I'm gonna look up YouTube videos on how to be a better listener. I'm gonna read books on how to be a better listener. I want to learn more about finance. There's plenty of YouTube people that will tell you about all this stuff for free. There's books that will tell you about all this stuff. There's apps that will tell you about all this stuff. Like there's everything. And I realize I'm like, man, I always separated life from breaking and art because I always thought they were different. But everything is the same. Like if you just approach your life the same way you approach art, like yeah, it's gonna be boring at first, but you got to spend a lot of time. So we were talking about how to balance everything, right? So breaking. I've got a good foundation in breaking. Like you, in the sense of like my foundation is still trash. Don't look at my
Dude,
footwork, but
get that guy here. All right, keep going.
but like I have a good foundation in the sense of I've already learned like all the basics of like footwork. I've learned the basics of power. I've learned the basics of like transitions. I know how to do all this stuff. So instead of me having to spend like 3 hours at a practice session, nowadays I can get a decent practice, like not the best one, but I can get what I would have gotten out of like 2 3 hour practice when I was young in like 30 minutes, which
Damn.
gives me the time. Like, I mean, obviously not the perfect session, but it's like I can choose one thing to work on, like, and just focus on that. Versus when you're in like now I can use that time to spend all those long hours to build the basics of other aspects of my life.
Right.
Like, so it's like, all right, now I'm gonna spend like 30 minutes to an hour learning guitar, or I'm gonna spend like this much time like digging through manuals of like how to work these broadcast settings, or like even just reading through like the glossary of terms in film, because a lot of times like you'll go onto like a film set and they're like, oh, bring me the hi-hat. I'm like, I don't know what a hi-hat is, and it's just like it's you end up finding this stuff out. And so it's so funny how just little things, like just little times, you just spend just a little bit of time studying something and it just takes you to the next level. You just always have to apply yourself.
Definitely having that student mentality. I can definitely see that within you. Um, the
I
second we
mean,
got in here,
you do it all the time, man.
I am fortunate to have found the value in that. Just it's the infinite game, and we're never done learning. In fact, like getting out of
Exactly.
college, it's just the beginning.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, diving more into how you were talking about kind of optimizing your practice by identifying the foundations. That's kind of like, have you heard of the 80-20 rule before? Does that sound
No.
familiar? So the 80-20 rule is, it's easy to remember because 80, 20, 100. But the idea is that you use 20% of the total scheme of things to gain 80% of the results. And I think that's exactly what that philosophy is like a parallel to, is finding the foundations and then being able to use those foundations to be more effective in your practice. And you learn that through breaking. That was kind of like your template, right, for
Yeah, for sure.
learning other things. Okay, that's super cool, and I'm glad you laid it out that way. That was really great to hear. I'm gonna listen back to that as well. And I don't want to push the time too much. We can always have another talk, and I think we will, because
For
I'm,
sure, for
I'm
sure.
really enjoying this. And so I was wondering about. So I was kind of looking at the user submitted questions that people were sending in, and I think a few people asked this question, including Invince and who else asked, but they were basically asking about your long-term goals with breaking, and as well as like finding your style, and that's from Psych Ho. But trying to fuse that into one question, with my own curiosity is what? Yeah, I'm curious about your approach to your breaking in the long-term scale. So, for example, I think I find it kind of, well, I've been learning to have a, what's the word, a more surgical long term goal of where I want to take my breaking and what type of style I want to develop, what I want to exactly become. Because I feel like the more precise of a vision I have, then the less noise I have to navigate through in order to get to that point. I was wondering if it was similar to you. I know Nico has a similar plan where he lays out his practices in like month form, and within that month he breaks that into weeks, and within those weeks he breaks into days, and the days have different topics that he's going to work on. Kind of in the same sense that you said you're going to spend 30 minutes working on a single move. in order to?
Oh, I don't work on just a
Oh,
single move. I'm like way too ADD for
right. It's
that.
hard. It's really really hard.
That's why my form is trash.
Dude, get out of here. Shut the fuck up. But I was curious if you have a vision for yourself, like that you build towards, because you definitely have a very distinct style, and I'm curious how that kind of took shape and how that continues to take shape for you. How far are you projecting your yourself to be, and how are you taking the steps to go there? How do you structure your practices on like a monthly, weekly, daily basis?
Man, see, you were talking about how Nico structures his practices, and I'm like, man, I don't really do that. I try to think about it, and then it never ends up happening. But
I
I
feel you.
can.
I
All
feel you.
right, we can take this piece by piece. So ultimately, son, my goal in terms of breaking is just I just keep it real simple. I'm just trying to take over the world with my crew. That's all it really is. Um, it's like long term goals. I'm never thinking about. I am thinking about the long term, but the long term goal is just to be as dope as hell. Like like my crewmate Kurt always says, if you want to be dope, you'll be dope. Like that's the end of it. If you really want it, you'll work for it and you'll make it happen. And it's just like I just want to be the best that I can possibly be. So that's my goal in terms of that. In terms of style, I don't really think that I have like a distinct style, and I feel like I'm always still trying to find it. Like,
If I can give an external
yeah,
observation,
yeah.
and also I forgot who else said this, but I think I might have been talking with Corey about you. Yeah, and so
Corey.
yeah, I love that guy. But
Same.
shout out to Corey if you're listening. Probably is. He's also a student of life. But
Yo, yes, he is a caveman.
he's he's a sage. He's like a hermit. But
Yes.
so I guess I think he said that of the foundations and like watching your footage and watching your battles, at least one of your foundational power moves is like the 2000. I don't know if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's like something
Actually, a
that
90.
a
2000
90.
is. I'm not as good at 2000s.
Really?
Surprisingly enough.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
I can just. Yo, Glitch 2000 is a very specific move.
Okay, I see. Got it. And yeah, so I mean that seems like something that you intentionally chose to prefer working on. And I guess the
Okay.
bigger
Yeah, we can
question,
talk about that.
yeah, the bigger question is maybe like what type of, if there are moves or styles or people that have kind of you've taken as role models, maybe even characters. Like for example, um, think about every good anime character and how they actually have an edge. There's like
Bro,
something about them that you can remember. You know, Goku, right?
bro,
Kamehameha.
how much time you got? Because this is podcast about to go another hour if you gonna get into anime real quick. I got roll up the sleeves.
If we have to, then I'll split it into two because this is something I definitely want to talk about with you. I
Oh my
unfortunately
god.
haven't watched Fully Cooley. I know that's one of your personal favorites,
Oh,
but
dude,
I've only
dude.
heard all the good stuff about it.
Well, all right. So here's the thing. Full transparency with Fooly Cooley. Fooly Cooley is like one of those. There's certain anime that you have to like. Anime, movies, all that kind of stuff. There's certain things that you have to watch within like a certain time frame or like developmental years when you haven't seen everything else.
Mm,
Because after you've been exposed to all this other stuff, you're not gonna. It's not gonna seem that impressive to you. Like think about sometimes um, when I first watched like old 90s footage, I wasn't completely blown away back then because it was like I was looking at physics and all the Koreans when I first started.
mm,
So some of the older b-boys I was like, I'm not too into this, like whatever. I was just like, I just didn't appreciate it for what it was worth. And then it wasn't until I came back years later, having seen like everything else and everything that people are putting out, that I really came to appreciate it. Versus like Fooly Cooley, it happened when I was like young and Toonami was a thing, and I hadn't
mm.
seen so much anime, and it was just like something that came on really late at night, and all this other kind of stuff. So
It's a
Fooly,
cornerstone though. A lot of studios actually make their animators watch Fully Cooley as a base point. So
yeah,
I'm very impressed by that. Like that testament towards it. But I need to
See?
still anyway continue.
Yeah, it's amazing. Don't get me wrong. I love it. It's one of my favorites. But I've realized trying to suggest it to friends after college, if they've already watched anime and stuff like that, like one friend described it as pulling teeth. And I'm like, yeah, if you're used to kind of more faster paced stuff and all this, like it makes sense. But it hit me at the right time, like during my
Got
developmental
it.
years. So that's the main reason. But okay, so going back to getting back onto topic. Um, in terms of so I it's funny because I don't really necessarily think about how 90 plays into my styles like that, but I feel like maybe people don't realize it, but like your first power move kind of determines where your style is going to go. So like
Damn.
who was I talking to about this last night? Dang, I can't remember. This I was talking to one of my friends in New York about this last night, but basically choosing like your first power move is like choosing your starter Pokemon. It determines like, all right, oh, you're gonna be
Whoa.
fire type, water type, like psychic, ice, like whatever. Like your first power move does that. So like for example, my brother and I are similar, but even our styles are still different. So like my first power move was like crickets and 90s. Those were the first two, and then I just really liked 90, loved doing it, and so I threw it in wherever I could. Versus my brother, he was always good at like ground power, like windmills, munch mills, that kind of stuff. So like all his floor transitions and like he's got like good back rock and stuff like that because he's
Oh.
always got that good arch in his back
Damn.
and just it builds your foundation of how you move. Like I've always been good at air freezes because I'm used to like I would just practice handstands and 90s and then just hand like air freezes and transitions. Whereas my other crewmate Church Coleman, his whole thing was always flares. Like so he did flares and air flares. Like those were like his like first power
Damn.
moves. So like everything he does is really explosive. And for Kurt, I would assume that his stuff was his first was probably like a swipe. I'm pretty sure it was like a swipe. And even when you look at his like really old footage from when he was like in high school, he was doing like all kinds of swipe transitions and stuff like that, which is why he has such good transitions from low level to high level because that swipe, man, I'm over here trying to relearn swipe because my swipes are trash, and I'm like, dang, like this would make so many moves and combos so much better if I just had good swipes. So it's kind of like it wasn't necessarily a conscious thing of like, all right, I'm gonna base my style off 90s. It was just kind of like I had 90s, and because you have them, you figure out how to use them better. And only from like training with like others of my friends, I have like one friend back home who is a perfect example of like the grind never stops. Like he hasn't battled in years. He doesn't really battle, but he trains all the time. So anytime I fly back home and we train together, he's like, yo, man, he'll show me like 15 different 90 transitions. I'm like, yo, how the hell do you do that? He's like, oh, I just sit at home and make 90s. I'm like, bro, you don't compete no more. I'm like, you just sit at home and you just make transitions. He's like, yeah, I just like doing it. And
Damn.
like, he's one of my inspirations. Like, shout out to Edwin because like he just trains for the fun of it
That's
and has
dope.
become nasty at it.
That's dope.
So
Does he have a B boy name?
yeah, Edwin.
Edwin. All right. I'll try to remember that.
I'll send you some footage of
Oh,
him later.
please.
But like most of his stuff is obviously practice footage since he doesn't go to jams anymore. But yeah. But I'm still finding my style, man. Like I'm like
Is it kind of like a
there's
touch and go thing for you, where you kind of evaluate where you're at, and then you kind of pick what direction you want to head, or
yeah, yeah. I'll do that, and I have little breakthroughs. So if you want to talk about exactly how practice goes, like, so I'm very unstructured. Like, I don't plan things out, which comes out very much in my style and also in my life, which is how, like, I just kind of surf from gig to gig. It just kind of happens. And I need to be more proactive and focused in it, but it's just a part of the process as of right now. But one thing that I found is when I would practice, I would always practice and do something at practice. Like everybody's experienced this moment. You practice, and then you do something and somebody's like, man, that was crazy, do it again. And you're like, I don't know what I did. Like, I have no idea
Yeah.
because it wasn't intentional.
Yep.
And so it was around the time that I moved to LA. I just brought out a laptop, put it in a corner, let it record, wouldn't even look at it so I could just focus on doing me. And then, yeah, I would look at like the 2 hour, 3 hour long video after it was all done. And I'm like, all right, I need to archive this. So I set up an entirely separate private Instagram of just putting my footage in,
Mm.
and then just through there you can organize it by like saving the files and then archiving it. Like, this is my power, this is my footwork,
Oh.
here are my signature
Yeah.
moves, this is named stuff, these are whole rounds, these are half rounds, this is just like something that I want to develop later that I'm gonna come back to, and like all that kind of stuff. And then like that's great because I get on that Instagram and I follow my other crewmates' private Instagrams, and then like a couple of like my other friends from around the country. And then we, like, when you log into that Instagram, all you see is breaking, and all you see is everybody putting up their experimental and their new stuff, and you're just like, man, I need to practice. So it's always a good motivation to practice. And then it's great because you'll do a move and then you practice like for a couple weeks, and maybe I don't practice intentionally this move every day, and then 2 weeks, 3 weeks from then I look back at like footage from like a couple weeks ago and I see this move I was struggling on, and I've got it way better, and it's like I've already flipped it and turned it into a brand new thing, and I'm like, dang, like, and practice makes, like, watching practice footage like that keeps you accountable. Because when you're just practicing by yourself, you're like, oh, I'm gonna practice windmill. So me, I lose my attention span really quickly. I'll be working on something. I'm like, it's fine. Maybe I'm messing with windmills, and then I do a couple, and I'm like, all right, I feel like that last one was really good. Now I'm gonna do 90s or something, or just go off and dance because I really feel like dancing. And then you look back at the footage, and you're like, oh, that last one was kind of good, but let me see another one, and then you're just done, and you're like, wait, that was the last time I practiced windmills this entire practice? It's like, yo, future you doesn't give a damn about how tired or how bored the past you was. All you care about is like, no, do it again. So then when you're at practice the next time, you're like, man, I'm tired. And it's like, man, but later I'm gonna be pissed at this footage when I like see that I was slacking off. So it just makes you want to practice even harder.
Damn, that's true. You keep yourself accountable. Future you keeps
Mm-hmm.
yourself accountable. That's great.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got it. Thank you for that. That's very helpful. And also, yeah, just for people who are looking for guidance in structuring their practice, and all of this is transferable because, like we said, breaking is everything, right? So,
Ooh, yo, I have another thing that I feel like people should do more often.
please,
So, well, this also goes into the style aspect, I guess. So I wouldn't. All right. Well, I would say I guess I'm known for my musicality, but I don't feel like I'm that sharp in terms of like how I hit beats. Sometimes it's a lot of times it feels like it's just flailing all over. But um, people just kind of assume that the dance aspect of breaking is you either got it or you don't, and that's not the case at all. Like, I practice dancing in the same way that somebody would practice a move. When you hear a song at a jam and it comes on and you know the song, you're like, oh, okay, I'll hit this beat, right? But how often do you sit in your room or in your house and you play a song and then you practice to it and then you play it back and then you play it back and then you play it back and then you play it back, and you've done that? Like, I'll sit here in my room, like, shoot, even last night I was watching like old footage and I'm like, man, I was looking at some footage from the Funk Force anniversary, and I was like, I was dancing to some Buster track or something like that, and I'm like, damn, I missed all of these beats, or I missed like hitting this part of the musicality, or man, I didn't even realize I should have hit this and done this kind of move. So then it's like, I'll play back that round and then I'll battle myself from that round. And
damn.
I'll like, all right, let me try and hit this musicality. Now let me try it a different way. So it's like, I'll spend maybe like 5-10 minutes just dancing to that song, all top rock, that same part over and over again. Because like, when you're dancing in a battle, in certain songs, all right, they're always going to play this part of the song. Every time they play this song, they always play this part. They don't go to these other parts, they just play this
Right.
part. So it's like, all right, I'll play this part. So then I'll top rock to that part of the song for like 5-10 minutes, and then make the pictures that I want to make. And then I'll make like 15,000 pictures so that when the song comes on, I have a bunch of options. Because I'm not trying to do the same thing every time. That's boring. I hate looking back at footage and being like, oh, here's that move that I've thrown and shown like 1,000 times. And then I'll go back and I'm like, all right, cool. Now let me hit this with footwork. How many different ways I can make this picture happen with footwork? Now let me try it with power. Now let me try it with freezes. And so it's like, I'll just dance to a song, the same part of a song over and over again, and see how many different ways I can flip it. Because I might not like, one thing I learned in choreo is that I'm not a counter. I can't count beats. I hate that. I hate counting beats. Like, I'm like, I don't want to, the last thing I want to do when I'm dancing is count. Like, I hate math. Like, that's why I'm in the creative arts field, because I hate math. So I'm not trying to count anything. I'm not going to be like 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3. Like, no, I'm not counting that 5, 6, 7, 8. I want to be able to feel it. The only way I can feel the beat is that if I know it inside and out. So, like, for example, that song last year at I Want All the Smoke, when I got that Redman song in Top 16, like, one of my friends was like, oh man, they played your theme song. Because back in college, I played that song every day. I would play it at practice. And I didn't practice to it the way that I'm talking about now, where I like just break down a song like 1,000 different ways.
But it's second nature to you at that point.
Because I had listened to it for years, and I would go to like every practice, like me and my crew, we would always make sure that we played that song, because it was just like, everybody loved it. And so it's like, I knew it inside and out, but the only way you get to that point is you just know it. So it's like, all right, I know they're going to say this at this point, and I know this beat's going to hit at this point. And when you've done 1,000 different variations of something to a song, it just becomes second nature. So that's the thing that people don't really clue into, is like, you can practice dancing just as much as you can practice a move. Like, you don't have to always, all right, well, these break beats are playing in the background, and then I'll just magically absorb them if I listen to them for like 4 or 5 years. It's like, yo, you can expedite that process in a heartbeat. So yeah, watch your old footage, see songs that you get. Like, one thing, man, this is a whole nother part of a conversation, but one thing people don't realize is, like, DJs cater to the dancer. You might not notice it, but they do. You'll always notice that certain b-boys, like certain famous b-boys, always seem to get the same song sometimes when they're at jams. And it's like, I remember growing up, like in the early 2010s, Gravity almost always, when I would see him at a jam, he'd always get like every time, and he would always murder that beat. And I'm like, dang, how come he always gets this song? And years later, I'm like, well, the DJ knows, man, I'm bored. Like, the DJ is just as much a member of the audience and a judge as anybody else is. So it's like, is he or she gonna waste a track on somebody that's not going to dance to it? It's like, no, they want to see somebody kill it. So if you're known for your musicality, like, the better a dancer you are, the better you're known for, like, killing a beat, the more likely a DJ is to give you something to kill. Because they're like, oh, I'm going to just lob this their way because I'm going to have a good time. Like, and people don't think about it like that, but that's really how it happens. So you just got to be prepared. And the best way to be prepared is to study.
Yes. Exactly. Always being prepared, but never being ready. I remember you told me that. Yeah. Yes. All right. Thank you very much for that, Ryan. And I think that's a good place to start to wrap it up. I'm just gonna shoot a few rapid fire questions at you now.
Oh shit.
Yes. So.
Long walks on the beach. Nothing.
So here, I think you already gave a few, but if you had to give some quick travel tips, what would they be?
Oh,
for b-boys.
Man, I'm terrible because I love to make sure I pack whole outfits. First one, fly Spirit, because it's mad cheap. don't buy a bag. You can pack a duffel bag, and they'll still like technically it's like carry on, but you can just pretend it's a personal item. They almost never check. Like I've never had somebody check. I've actually snuck on a duffel bag and a backpack on multiple occasions, and they have never asked me to check it in. So when they start saying like, "Oh, you'll pay $100 at the gate if you don't hurry up and do this," just ignore it because they don't give a damn. And I always
Nice.
just wait until like the last person to get on because at that point they're not trying to check you for your bag. They're just trying to make sure you make your flight.
Ooh, that's a
So
good tip.
and that's the way you can always sneak on extra
Mm.
extra stuff if you need it. I traveled to Europe for that was 2 months with a single duffel bag that fit in the personal item slot, and I brought a week's worth of clothes and 3 pairs of shoes with me.
Wow.
So yeah.
Nice. All right. Thank you for that one. That was good. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Next question. Oh, this is from Izzy and Danimals. They ask, when you gonna water them plants?
God damn it! I can't escape. I can't escape. Can we move? What's the next question, man? Man.
I'll
I
ask you
should have
about that
known the second you
afterwards.
said. Oh
I don't
my
know.
god,
Okay.
that's a whole
Um,
thing.
okay, for sure. All right, here, favorite anime.
Man, I can't give you a favorite. I can give you
Top
maybe
three?
top three. Um, uh, Brotherhood, Code
Mm,
Geass,
mm,
and I'd say Fooly Cooly for nostalgia purposes, but like there's like obviously Bleach, One Piece, and like all that, like those rank in the tops too, but like everybody says it, so I'm trying to give people something a little
sure.
different.
How was your okay? I found something pretty interesting on your Facebook or is it Instagram or something. But you were naming your sneakers after Gundam Wing.
Ha!
How is your
Yo,
relationship with that show? Because that
dude,
was my shit. So
I love Gundam, man. So I name the shoes you're talking about, or the Air Max One
Tallgeese
Olympics.
threes, huh?
Yeah,
That
the
was sick
Tallgeese
name. It's
threes.
perfect.
Yo, because
Yeah.
they look like tall geese. I have another pair that I call the Gundam Wings because they're like these. They're the Air Max. They're the Pegasus or something like that, but Pegasus Olympics, and they look like, yeah. But no, man, like that's the whole thing about even with moves. Like I have a move that's called I call it the Maxwell, and it's like I like swing my leg like a scythe, and I'm like, yo,
Oh,
it's like a death scythe. So I'm like, but instead of calling
it's
it
like
death
duo.
scythe because that's corny, I'm like, it's like I'm gonna just call it name it after the pilot because I'm controlling the scythe. So
That's
I just call it the
dope. I
Maxwell.
like that.
It's like but that's the thing is like naming moves, like naming clothes, like naming fits and stuff like that. It's all just a part of the game. Like when it comes to breaking, I always try to breaking and life in general. I just try to approach it like a kid because the more fun you have with it, the more you enjoy it. There's like you're telling a story whether you think you are or not. So it doesn't matter if anybody else gets it. If you fuck with it, it shows. There's like a little something extra about it. It just makes it just a little bit tighter.
Yes.
So and yeah, Gundam Wing was like one of my first anime, and it's like it forever. People, yo, you go on the Gundam forums and they say Gundam Wing is a trash anime. That's bullshit. I just rewatched the whole thing a year ago. They lying.
It's good. It's very, very good. I'm a huge fan.
But check out Iron Blooded Orphans. That one's
I
pretty nasty too.
I think Heavy Arms is one of my favorites. I don't know if you have anything in it for
Oh,
that, but
oh,
that guy
yo,
is
Heavy
oof.
Arms. I've been wanting a Heavy Arms shoe. Heavy Arms custom
You the blue
from
one.
Endless Waltz. Yes,
If
yes.
you can find something like
High
that,
key.
hit me up. Let me know.
Oh, dude, I will let you know.
All right, dope.
But I will cop them for myself first.
Yes, please, please. That brings me to my next rapid fire question, which is favorite sneaker.
Ooh, to break in or just in general?
Um, let's say overall, so you don't have to limit yourself.
Ooh, damn.
You can do a
Hmm.
top three too if you want.
I'm really partial to Air Maxes. Um, just because they have so much support. For me, what makes a really good shoe is like I mean these days I can't wear anything if it's not to break in it almost like unless I'm like really dressing up for a formal event. So it's like I almost don't buy shoes if they're not breakable. But I got these ones recently. I'll show you after because they're in the next room. But they're the Air Max. They're called the Nike Ghost Racers,
Oh.
and they're a exclusive custom that has like they all kinds of wild. They got like 2 check marks on it on the back. They've got like
Oh.
3 of the emblems, all kinds of different colors. It's got cheetah print on the side.
What the heck?
It's just like got a lot going on, and it's super loud and obnoxious. And I just really enjoy shoes and clothes that like don't make sense and shouldn't like you have no idea how to style it, and I love taking on that challenge to be able to just go, all right, yeah, I'm gonna try that out
That's a dope
and
answer.
see what I can do. So yeah, the Ghost Racers are really nice. I'm also really partial to the Air Max TN Plus. They
Oh.
are great to break in. The only problem is I just don't like a lot of their colorways.
Mm.
And ooh, um, yeah, yeah. I can't think off the top of my head.
That's
Like
good.
all my shoes are in my other room,
That's a good answer.
but I'll show you after.
Please. All right, cool. And then last one will be, do you have a favorite battle? And it doesn't have to be
Like,
your battle. Just like
oh,
in general. Is
yo,
there one that you
okay.
always go back to?
Physics is one of my favorite b-boys of all time. So like, what is it? Physics versus Lilu, or was it
Whoa.
against Kareem
Is it the one where he flips off the
or
stage?
Yup. Yo, the stack combo on that was crazy.
Yes.
That was so nuts, man. Like the thing is, you look at physics footage, and it's like nobody was touching that kind of stuff, and even to this day, nobody's doing that kind of stuff. Even physics can't do that kind of stuff anymore. It's like he was ahead of his time so much that he can't even catch up to that time.
Yeah,
Like
man.
untouchable.
He's a relic in time, yeah. One for the books,
Yeah.
most definitely.
Yeah, and any Stripes footage and any Negus footage is also just like top tier.
Migas? That's not, I don't think
Yeah.
I've watched Migas before. How do you spell his name?
You take that back.
How do you spell his name? M
M
E
E
G.
G A S.
Okay, I'm gonna get on that after this.
Bro, I'm about to send you so many clips.
Please.
and
I need to
blow
get
your
educated,
mind.
honestly. I'm pretty uncultured in
Dude, that
relation.
we'll have a whole nother conversation after this that can be a whole which could be another podcast about I'll basically break down the idea of Austin Kleon's how to steal like an artist and how to apply that to
Oh,
breaking.
yo, that sounds amazing. Please. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. All right. Well, Ryan, closing up, is there anything that you want to share with the audience, projects you have going on, things you want them to follow, anything like that, or things maybe just something you want to leave them with?
Don't follow me on Instagram. I hate new followers because then I can't be my authentic self. I'll be feeling like I have to
Fair.
perform for
All
these
right.
people.
You'll
And
have
I'll be
to,
deleting my Instagram all the time.
for sure. Okay. I'll make it harder for them to find you then.
No, you don't have to. It's fine. But I don't know. I'm not working on anything special right now. I mean, check out Caffeine TV, which is what I'm working on right now. Cause you ain't doing shit inside during quarantine. Like, what's good? I work on Dungeon Rundown on Tuesdays,
Dungeon
6
Rundown.
p.m.
Okay. I was curious about,
Yeah.
yeah, what you're doing. I'll ask you all about that later, but
Man, well, I don't know which other shows that I'm working on now because everything is changing. So I will keep you posted.
for sure. Thank you. All
It's
right, Ryan.
free to make an account.
Oh, really? Okay. All right.
Yeah, yeah,
Caffeine
yeah.
TV, y'all. All right, yeah. Well, if that's gonna be all for now, just because we're running short on time. But Ryan, thank you for
Yeah,
all of this. This has been amazing. Absolutely
yeah.
a pleasure.
Absolutely no problem, dog.
Thanks, man. All right. Well, this is Ryan and Kai on the Crossroads signing out. Please have a good day, stay safe, and continue being a student. Take care.
And distance yourselves.
That's right. Enjoy. Peace out.